Yes.
you know, they want to be mom, right? They want to be, it's not like they don't want to be, and again, I don't know, I don't want to say it wrong, but they don't want to be known as the working mom. Like my career is many women like, I want to be mom too. And I want to do that better than anything else.
Yeah.
And even though, yeah, the career is important or the income that generates is important to my household, and so, but in today's world now, like you've said, with technology and now there's a way to say, okay, I can be mom, even maybe a stay-at-home mom, and start developing a side business because technology is going to allow me to do that, right? I don't have
Right.
to be out there, getting up at, early in the morning and leaving out and, being at a location all day long.
Right.
So there's ways to start doing that. Not again, it's not easier, but it's still an opportunity that wasn't once there because technology now is giving us that. Whether again it's you know the sourdough bread analogy or something
Yeah.
else. So but but the the challenge still is I know like in our business we have you know a lot of women that work here in this professional world and but at the end of the day when their kids are sick yeah sometimes dad will stay home but usually it's mom's not just I have to stay home. I want to be home with my kids.
Right.
When they're sick,
Right.
I want mom to be home with them. Even if my husband can take his day off from work, I want to
Right.
be there, right? And because there's
Yeah.
just that, it's just how we were, wired up, I guess. But so and again, and that's the other thing about technology is, where before we would have to say, okay, well, you got to take a personal day to, be home with your kids. Now it's like, all right, well, fire up your laptop and work from home. You
That's
know,
right. That's
go
right.
go give the kids Tylenol every 4 to 6 hours, and let them
Yeah.
sleep, and and keep going. So,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, as we kind of round out this conversation, and one of the great things about when you talk about, you think of things like Women's History Month is, you get to look back and see contributions like how women have evolved and changed. And I think one of the things that has begun to evolve is just how we're phrasing things, right? It's, no, do I want my kids to feel like my career ever came before them? No, of course not. However, the conversation also is, guess what? We like to go do things. This is how mommy helps people. This is how mommy makes money. And so there's a balancing act that our family takes. So, yeah, you might want me to be home with you while you're sleeping because you have a little bit of a headache. But guess what? Guess who also works from home now? Your dad works from home. So your dad can be at home while I'm out here doing these appointments. And guess what? There's a balancing act because there's things that you want to go do when you feel better, right? Well, that's because of what mommy does. And it's so funny. Say, like last night, the kids are like, oh, I want you to do. I'm like, listen, you guys are going to go to bed. I'm going downstairs to work on a couple things. Monroe goes, yeah, Bishop, you like to do things, right? Mommy's going downstairs to work and that benefits you. And I'm like, that's right, Monroe. That's right. All right. Because you guys, either way, you guys are going to sleep. So mommy's going to go do some things. And so I think it's just changing. It's changing the conversation